Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, this is Season 6 of the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast. It is presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. Have you tried the Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high proof this holiday season? If not, here we are, New Year's Eve. There's still time before, Ray, we turn the clock over on 2025. And our old pal Jeff McDonald brought up an interesting point. I mean, it's just a timeline, right? But he's like, I don't know about you, but from year 2000 to 2025, just snap of the fingers. That's how quickly it went by. And then you think back to being a kid, 1975 to the year 2000. I mean, that seemed to, just kind of plod along because, you're in different stages of your life and all of that. And I went, that's an excellent point. I don't know how it felt for you because there was a lot of hockey played in that stretch, but man, did it go by quick.
Okay, so 1975, I was playing Little League Baseball. So I don't know, you're a kid, you got all day, nothing seems to move along too quickly. You don't think about anything, right?
No,
and now,
no.
like yesterday my son Riley turned 18, and I'm like, holy smokes, like it's just literally zipping by. And yeah, hell, it's a math equation, right? Each year's a less chunkier life, and it goes by faster. And just be happy to be here, I think.
No kidding. Speaking of family, we do want to hear about your trip to England and how that went, because I know it was an awesome experience. But I do have to explain the reason for YouTube followers and those who follow on my ex account of the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast. I'm wearing a cap with the word "pal" on it. Okay, so I don't know if you recall this, but I'm gonna jog your memory. So Katie and Matt are called to the bar in October, right? And you were very complimentary, congratulatory of Katie and Matt's accomplishment, full-fledged lawyers,
Amazing.
all of that. Yeah. We had a conversation on the pod about it, and I couldn't quite explain the relationship between Katie and Matt. I kind of stumbled over boyfriend, so I referenced Katie's pal. Okay. So this is a testament to the good people in Thunder Bay, Ontario, who listen to the Ray and Dregs podcast, because it wasn't long after that podcast where I think the first time was Matt plays, beer league hockey. A colleague guy plays against comes and taps him on the shins with his stick and says, "Hey, pal, how's it going?" And then, in his firm, his colleagues are coming up to him. "Hey, pal, how you doing today, pal?" So now it's stuck. It's stuck. Everybody refers to Matt as pal. So anyway, he comes in real quick. He comes in on Christmas Day, right? He spent the morning with his family, comes over to our house for the afternoon, and he hands me this box, Christmas present. And he says, "Before you open it, I have to explain." And so that's how he explained his experience since that podcast. So thank you to those who listen to Ray Dregs and Thunder Bay.
Well, he must have felt really great. Like, man, I'm making a nice inroad here with the family. Hey, pal.
Hey, pal. Anyway, he's a great young man. So there we go. Well, don't call him pal anymore, you guys. Be nice to him.
You can pick up your game here too a little bit, eh?
I think so. I guess they own a house together. I guess I should just accept the reality here.
Jesus, this is way past pal. This isn't even close, man.
All right. So there's the hat explanation why I'm wearing it. And this is a tribute in honor of Katie's boyfriend, Matt. How's that? There we go. Oh, significant other, partner. I don't know. What do I call
you took the step.
Other than pal?
You took the step. Boyfriend. Boyfriend's fine.
All right, buddy. You had a whirlwind tour, didn't you? I mean, what was it? The better part of a week, but a week goes by again. We started the pod referencing how quickly time flies. How was the trip to England with the family?
Was better than I was hoping for. So for those that didn't hear, we went over to London for a day basically, and then took the train up to Liverpool and watched Leicester City and Liverpool on Boxing Day. We never really got time lagged, like we We just kind of
Yeah.
slept when we were tired and ate kind of whenever we ate. And but man, it was, I mean, the whole trip was about the game, and it's so cool. I was telling you yesterday, like the stadium's 62,000 seats, and
Yeah.
there's no parking, and so you get to the game by walking there. And so people, like, they'll park as far away as downtown, which is like a mile, and they
Yeah.
walk a bit and they stop in a pub and have a beer and walk to the next pub and have like a sandwich and a beer. And like, it's
An
amazing to
event,
watch. And
literally.
yeah,
Yeah.
and every little bit you get closer, you know, you feel more of the game coming up. And we got a tour of the stadium beforehand, and all the history in the
Nice.
club. And you know what? There's something about the way they support the team. It just, like, it's so important to the community.
Oh,
Like it is,
generational support, right? Like it is
yeah.
generational support.
And and so I think you, well, not I think you feel it, like
Mm.
you know. And so I was our 15-year-old in particular, Reese. He's all in Liverpool supporter. He's up at 5 in the morning on Saturdays to watch them play. He, you know, and so I started saying to him, just like being a dad and a pain in the ass, I kept calling him, you know, with my club. And, and he's like, stop it. You don't know 5 players on the team. And which, but it was, they were so happy, Drakes. They were so
Ah,
happy.
that's so cool.
And Cammy and I had an amazing time. And then I flew back on the 27th. I could have planned this a little better. I flew back on the
Okay.
27th,
Yeah.
landed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 6 in the morning, I was back at the airport on the 28th to fly to Chicago. I probably could have done that a little better, but picked up lots of airline points too. So, you know, all good
That's a
there.
good dad and a
But
great husband. You made sure your
well,
family got back into Vancouver safely.
I'm gonna say on the husband thing, maybe. Uh, so we only got one upgrade for the way home, and
Oh no.
tough choice. But they gave it away,
Oh
and then my
no.
seat was gone next to them. I really felt cornered and didn't have a choice. But
Okay.
I did. I moved up to business. This guy sitting across from me, and he, you know, we're flying to Vancouver. He, you know, knew who I was, I guess, whatever. And he goes, "Oh, I see you guys are all Liverpool supporters." He goes, He was in England watching Chelsea, and
Okay.
so he was not happy with our support of Liverpool. But anyway, I go, who'd you go over with? And he goes, oh, my wife and daughter. And I go, well, where are they? And he goes, oh, they're in premium economy. I go, good. I'm glad to know I'm not the only donkey sitting up here with his family sitting behind him. And so I brought a pillow, the business blanket, some food. I was like, I did not feel good about my choice. However, when I fell asleep, I felt much better when I landed. So
I'm sure you
every
did. I'm sure
yeah,
you
so
did.
yeah, made it through. So I don't think husband of the trip was
Okay,
very
I
applicable.
will retract that.
Yeah,
Yes, that's in question for sure.
yeah.
All right, Ray, let's
My pal sat back there. It was
yeah,
good.
your pal,
Yeah.
your pal and two sons, yeah. Time for headlines, Ray, brought to you by Tim Hortons. The Tim's NHL Hockey Challenge back in the Tim Hortons app. Daily and monthly prizes available, including a 2025 Hyundai Tucson season end. That's the grand prize. It's a beauty. So you pick your players, the players that you think are going to score by using the app every game day. It is free. It's super easy. And as always, it's fun to play. Nashville and the New York Rangers not having a lot of fun, as we know. We talk about them a lot here on the pod. So the Preds lose again, shut out by the Winnipeg Jets. Nashville ranked 30th in the NHL. The Rangers fall to the Florida Panthers. Okay, not a shocker. Defending Stanley Cup champions are a really good team. Rangers last in the division, 26th in the NHL. New York now 7 points out of a wild card spot, 36 games played. It'd be ridiculous, I think, to call the season and say they're not playoff worthy. I mean, obviously today they're not, but Man, what's it going to take to get this group right back on the rails? Because I did you have a chance to read Larry Brooks' column a couple of days ago?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't
Absolutely.
recall the last time we saw a group of players eviscerated more by a columnist than that one. I mean, that used to be old hat, right? I think social media kind of turned that around because there's enough, you get enough on social media. That and no different than the Rangers are targeting Brady Tkachuk in the aftermath that we got from Michael Andlauer, the owner of the Sens. Yet you know that's coming from somewhere in New York. And it feels like Peter Laviolette is, well, he's clearly on the hot seat. That's obvious, but he's struggling.
Yeah.
He's in trouble.
Well, the problem for the Rangers is the problem for lots of teams becomes expectation. I was in Chicago and they're not very good, but they're in this rebuild, and there's some space around them. Last year, the Rangers make it to Game 6 against Florida, and they think, if they can make their team a little harder to play against, that they can challenge Florida. Because I think it's pretty clear most teams look at Florida and go, yeah, we are going to have to get through them somehow. Whether maybe we miss them and we don't have to play them, but that's a really good team. And so the Rangers come into the year with 12 or 13 guys on the last year of their contract. There felt like there was an immediate expectation to the team. It's not a team built for 6 years from now. And they started good, and then they just slowly came apart. And the crazy part is that with that roster is it's they didn't get hamstrung by injury strays.
Right.
Like they just fell apart. And then now you trade Trouba and you trade Kako, and Barclay Goodrow went in the summer, and there's this undercurrent of it's all got to change again.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: everybody can see it, but how do you execute it?
Yeah,
you can't just go and get new players. I'm sure they can see the deficiencies in their team. Yet, how do you fix it? Did you watch any of the game last night?
Bits of it, not a lot. No.
Did you see the pass Zibanejad made on the second Florida goal?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't like. That's not an NHL play.
No.
It's not like it's his first time. His first game. So it's all splintered. And so how do you fix it? Say you decide, okay, that's it. I got to move Zibanejad. How are you trading?
It's tough. Yeah.
Right. And so you can always say, you could make a deal if you want to. Well, they've got about 3 or 4 of those guys that would be really difficult to move if they chose to do that. So they're a team that's in tough. That is, and the weight of the market must be suffocating. Yet, I thought at times last night they looked good. They looked energetic, but they lose again. And when you lose, you find a way to lose. When you win, you find a way to win, over a stretch of games. Right now, if there's a way to lose, they're going to find it. They're just not a good team right now. They're not a good team. And again, the answer to it, it's multi-layered and it's going to take time, but it doesn't feel like a turnaround's right there.
Couple of hits I want you to weigh in on, right? Timo Meier of the New Jersey Devils, his hit on Marty Necas of the Carolina Hurricanes. He received a major and a match penalty for kneeing. And also Chicago's Tyler Bertuzzi given a major in game for elbowing Stars forward Colin Blackwell. So if we start with the Meier hit on Necas, now Necas looked hurt, man. He struggled to get off the ice. He went down the tunnel into the locker room, but he swiftly returned and played a good chunk on that Carolina power play.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess your thoughts on the hits, but Is there something the NHL should be looking at? Maybe not changing yet, but discussing, as they always want to do around those March general managers meetings, when it comes back to what looks like an injured player then returning very quickly after you've ejected the hitter from the contest.
Oh, okay, so they get a chance because they call it a major to review it on the ice, right?
Yeah.
So the refs go over to the tablet. So you got to remember, like, that hit happens in a blink of an eye, and it looks bad. It really does. And in particular, it looks bad because Nate just doesn't get up. But if he doesn't get up, or rather, if he does get up, it still looks bad. It just looks like a bad hit. I looked at that hit almost frame by frame, as much as I could do that. Natchez is in an athletic position. He's on Meier is in an athletic position. He doesn't change his course. He's going straight at Natchez, and Natchez, turns, of course, and the hit happens. I don't think it's anything more than the 5-minute major. But you would be able to look at it like the league has enhanced video. They would be able to look at it in even greater detail.
Yes.
I think there should be the option of not a game misconduct, of 5 and stay in the game. I also think in many cases, the league, even in their videos that they put out, they say, and as a resulting injury, the player received a match penalty, whatever.
Right.
If you go down and stay down, and the trainer comes out on the ice, and that results in a game misconduct for Meier, which it did, Natchez shouldn't be able to play in the power play. And it's an easy thing to enforce. There's hell, Dregs. You're talking about the meetings, and first thing that popped into my head is they're talking about, hey, should it be a penalty to push it back to the goalie and freeze it?
Yeah,
man. If they're talking about whether the fork should be on the left side or the right side of your plate, I think this is a little more important, and I really do think they should get to it. Every team can accept the call, but when the guy that gets hurt is back for 3.5 minutes of the power play, that game turned nasty, and that had a lot to do with it. And that had a lot to do with it. And so, in my opinion, that hit, should you review it, you decide it's a major fine. That's the way you want to go. But he can't play on the power play.
I like it.
And then the Blackwell one, Bertuzzi makes a hit, and his arm flails around, hits Blackwood dead on the nose. And, Blackwell has to go and get treatment, and I assume into protocol, because he was gone for the rest of the period. And he comes back into the game. The 5-minute major, Bertuzzi's kicked out. Now it's different because Blackwell isn't going to play on the power play, but same thing would apply there. He went down, trainer came out. There's an injury that results in the major, and then he can't play.
I like it. Yeah. I mean, it's worth discussing based on what you've said. I mean, look, they get into their breakout groups among general managers and hockey personnel in March. And what's wrong with having conversations about this and then elevate it, if necessary, to the full group? And then you decide whether or not there's a recommendation worthy to go onto the competition committee and all of that. That's what they do.
I don't see how anybody would be. I mean, somebody would be against it, but I don't know how you'd be against it, because it's going to happen to you eventually. Right. And it's going to happen to your team eventually. And then why would you want one of their best players who, is fine? I will say this about the player. You can get hit and be totally fine, but you're scared to death. When you hit the ice, you're like, oh my God, I'm hurt. You can't even tell if is that my knee? Do I have a Charlie horse?
Yeah.
And you have no idea. And then after 30 seconds, he's fine.
Yeah.
I get that happens. But if the resulting injury is part of the 5-minute major, then that guy shouldn't be able to play.
Speaking of injuries, we know Quinn Hughes is week to week in Vancouver. That could be 2 weeks, could be less slightly, I suppose, 3 weeks. It's not believed to be extensive, but when you're as dominant and as dynamic a defenseman as Quinn Hughes is in the National Hockey League, for a club that's been they've been openly transparent about shopping for a top four defenseman, losing him is going to leave a mark. And then you've got Elias Pettersson, who is more day-to-day. But I mean, you got two key pieces, on the sidelines now. So
actually, you got three. Actually, you got three.
Hronek.
Because Phil Hronek's out too. So just
Correct.
think, every game now the Canucks go in, they're missing 45 minutes of defenseman play. Good luck.
So there's an appetite in the fan base. Okay, I mean, Rutherford, Alvin, you guys have talked about shopping hard for this top four defenseman. Go out and get it. It's just not that simple unless you're, and look, the feedback that I'm getting from the managers that I know Vancouver have talked to, there's just not a match in terms of, okay, yeah, we're willing to talk about the defenseman that you covet, but the players and the pieces that you're offering aren't good enough to make that deal. And that's age old. I mean, you got to find that sweet spot. So is there a higher level of urgency, you think, in Vancouver to find that sweet spot sooner than later to get that defense?
Yeah, I think there is. Absolutely. 100%. How could there not be? I mean, if we can see it and everybody else that's watching can see it, they probably notice it. And so they go and you can only go offer the players that you have to offer. You can't, like the other general managers, they're not going, hey, sorry about that, Vancouver, here, let me help you out. Their price just went the other way. Those teams, if I'm holding a defenseman and that the Canucks are interested in, I'm not making it easier. I know that maybe I could get another draft pick. Maybe I can push for a different type of prospect or whatever the deal might be that they're putting together. But you say go get a defenseman, go get a top four. Like, who is it?
Mm-hmm.
And
I know.
And how do you? And if you have it, that team that's willing to move you a top four, they're probably not only talking to Vancouver. They're probably talking to three different teams. And and so it's got it's got the feel of, man, something's going to get pushed and done. But I mean, just because you're urgent doesn't mean the other side's every bit as urgent as you are. And that they might be willing to wait, the team holding the player, because they feel if we just hang on another 5 days, maybe we can get something different here. And it's the whole thing. It's the match that you talked about. It's the cap. It's the money. It's the contract involved. Like, man, these become hard things. I've been thinking about what Billy Guerin said, though.
Yeah,
when he was on with us, and I thought that was such a great point. He's like, if you're waiting to win every trade, you're never going to make one.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a really good point. Because if you're worried what everybody else is going to say, like, because you got to win the trade, you're going to sit there with the same collection of players, because I don't know, how often do you really win one? Joe Thornton's deal back in the day, like there's not many.
Hey, Wayne Primo's a hell of a player. What are you saying? Marco Sturm, come on.
Who else was in that? Brad Stewart, maybe?
I think so. I think it was Brad Stewart. I should know this because I broke that trade. It was a big victory over Bobby McKenzie.
Okay, and so that goes way back to 25 years ago, and time frame you can't even remember it. It went by fast, but you can't remember anything.
I was so scared that I was going to get something wrong. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. So anyway, hey, we've got Ryan Rashog standing by. He's going to join us for Ask Ray Dregs Anything. So I don't want to steal his thunder with rapid fire here, but there are a couple of things that I quickly want to get to in the headlines. So we'll get cruising. The Dallas Stars fined $100,000 for essentially holding an optional. Peter DeBoer calls it a voluntary skate on Boxing Day. It's clearly prohibited in the CBA. Clearly, it's outlined in the agreement between the Players Association and the National Hockey League. You can't do it. You can't travel. Ray, if you're a young player, would you know the specifics of that rule?
No.
And if you knew the rule, so you're saying no,
would
chance. You have the gonads to say, no, coach, I'm not going on the ice because I have the CBA. Like this whole thing, I know it's a rule break and I appreciate the fine, but I mean, those kids just want to get out for a stretch. I don't know. It's a rule break, so I get it.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is they probably got nothing else to do,
Yeah.
right? Like I did Dallas's game the next day and in Chicago, and I'm watching them walk over to their team meeting, and like there's Maverick Bork and Logan Stankoven and Liam Bischel, and I'm like, these kids have no idea about the CBA. There's not a chance. And Logan Stankoven hasn't scored since the middle of November. Do you think he's going to say, "Oh, sorry, coach, my PA right is that I don't have to practice today"? Like, not a chance. The ice is there; they're going to go. I think the key part of that rule is though the team, I believe, isn't even able to provide the ice.
No. Yeah.
And
so you had a lot of people involved in that process, right? Like it's
like the rink just
doesn't.
It doesn't open up by itself. Like somebody's got to, I don't know. I'm not really sure why they thought nobody would know. You're going to get nicked for it. The Leafs traveled. I mean, somebody noticed that a plane took off. And, it's not. So they got. I think they were $100,000 too, weren't they, Dregs?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was a precedent for the 100,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good toe step on there. I can guarantee you next Boxing Day they won't be practicing.
Well, and Peter DeBoer won't be talking about it.
That's probably another good point by you. Yeah.
All right. Winter Classic Day at Wrigley Field. So you've got Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks taking on the St. Louis Blues later this afternoon. So I'm always intrigued by it. I don't, the shine of the outdoor spectacle is lost on me. It's lost on me. But I do like the Winter Classic because it's like remember the old Heritage Classic back in the day?
Sure.
Again, years and years and years ago in Edmonton, where they almost called the game because it was like minus 21 Celsius, and Glenn Healy, the NHL PA, were just right on the cusp of pulling the pin there. So I do watch it as the spectacle. However, I mean, you can offer a thought on it if you choose. The game that I'm more interested in is pretty obvious: Canada, USA World Junior, 7:30 Eastern tonight on TSN. Both teams, Ray, have faced adversity at this point. I mean, Canada dropped a shocker in that shootout loss to Latvia, and then the Americans lose in overtime to Finland. If you had $100 burning in your pocket, and you don't, but if you did, because you don't often carry cash,
never.
Anyway, that's another story. Who would you bet on? Canada versus the United States?
I haven't seen more than 8 minutes of this tournament because I was overseas.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so I get back and I was all time wobbled, and I was watching Dallas play because I had them 2 days later, and somebody texted me and like, "Oh my God, are you watching this Canada game?" I go, "What, against Latvia?" No. I said, "I got to catch up here," and they're like,
"Turn it on." Yeah.
Turn it on. And so that's about how much I've watched of Canada. But I'm gonna, if I had to take your bet, I would, of course, I'm gonna bet on Canada. Why not? Because I don't know anything. I do notice though what I have noticed is the offense is far more difficult to generate from Canada's side, and that would worry me because the U.S. has some guys that can really go. It feels like they overthought this a little bit, and they really slimmed down their margins for offense by the team they picked. And I think in a short tournament, like you do need some instant offense once in a while.
Right.
Like sometimes you just need somebody to like throw a lightning bolt into the game, and the U.S. has about 3 or 4 of those guys. And I'm going to pick Canada because I'm Canadian, and that's why. But it's I think it's this Canada-U.S. game's always pretty fun, and this one's got a lot of juice to it.
It does. And look, I agree with you in terms of the overthinking. And look, our position may change if Canada finds its stride and ultimately they end up winning the gold medal. But I do think if Canada doesn't find its stride, and hey, maybe the Americans defend gold for the first time ever, that'd be great for USA hockey. But I do think it'll then carry into our questioning as media into the Four Nations face-off and the overthinking that may have taken place in the Canadian roster. I mean, again, you know, a healthy Zach Hyman, a motivated Zach Hyman, and the way that Zach Hyman plays the game can help you in so many different areas. And then you start pecking at the carcass, right? You know, did Hockey Canada and that group of management overthink in that regard? So there's a lot of scrutiny potentially coming Canada's way. It's my point, I guess.
And this also leaks into however they look at the Olympic team. Like,
sure,
like don't look at these as three different tournaments, even though they are. But there's a thread that will go through, and you try to learn from each event. But I thought they really focused in on trying to, you know, you're going to build this team, which is critical. But I think by doing that, you take away. You bring the margins in too tight by doing that. Like there's only one way you can play. You can ask a scorer to be a little more conservative. You can't ask a conservative player to score more. They just can't.
Fair. Yeah.
All right, buddy. I'll say about really quick outdoor game.
Yep.
It's for the local venue. It's for the local city. It's an event. And yes, it's not the same as when we saw Pittsburgh and Buffalo in the snow and Sid scoring the winning goal. Like we didn't. It's not that like the national spectacle, but it's for the local markets. And you know, I was in New Jersey last year for the back-to-backs outdoor games. It was phenomenal. Now, I don't know if other people felt watching around the country, oh, I got to watch that outdoor game. But when you were there, you're like, oh my God, people love this. It was really fun.
Well, and look, I'm not critical of it because you nailed it. And every time we ask the NHL or, you know, the Players Association, that's ultimately what it comes back to. It is now a big part of the growth of the game. And you do have to pay attention to that level of growth, you know, even on your homeland in North America. All right. Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons. Ask Ray Dregs anything. You can send us your questions on X and Instagram at Ray Dregs or on the website, raindregs.com. Ask Ray Dregs. I'm getting a little befuddled here. I get all confused.
Why? How? It's the end of the year.
Know.
Focus.
Well, I don't normally, when I go into Ask Ray Dregs, I don't normally fire off the accounts, right? So I look down at my paper and I see, okay, here are the accounts. Anyway, it is time for Ask Ray Dregs, and it's brought to you by Aecon. With over 150 years in the construction industry, Aecon is one of Canada's original leaders in heavy industrial contracting. Hey, they're always looking for great people like you to join their team. So if you or someone you know is looking for work, go to aecon.com, click join our team, see all of the great employment opportunities available. Aecon, building what matters to enable future generations to thrive. TSN's Ryan Rashog joining us in a
sorry. How about that
shirt.
pose? How about that pose? Is he like?
I know he's annoyed with me because I screwed up the sponsor read. That's why the boss is annoyed.
Right. Like, this is the thing. I come on this show and I'm all, you know, the goofy Ask Us guy that you guys beat up on. And I'm kind of like this novelty item, honk, honk on the show. But I also oversee a lot of this stuff, Dreg. So as the overseer, I got to say, when it comes to our sponsorships, we just stick to the script.
Tighten up.
Just stick to the scripts, buddy. Don't go off property.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
By the way, Dregs, you said that there's more to that story when you talked about Ray not ever carrying cash. And I'm wondering if maybe there's an alligator arms type story you were going to bring out, or what were you talking about there with Ray not having cash?
Well, hold on. So Ray is a competitor, as we know. So if it's involving the credit card roulette game or something, he's all in for that. He's not afraid to pick up the tab. Yeah, I get it. However, in my experience, especially at the World Championships, let's just say that if
let's say what?
Continue. Please continue.
Now, Ray worked hard. Gordon, they work hard. They get into the in-front lounge more often than not, or used to anyway. But on the rare off night, we'd gather for dinner. And normally it was Ray, Gord, and myself. I don't think Ray ever picked up the tab. I don't recall that. I don't think it happened one time.
Okay, hang
Ray,
on here.
What do you have to say for yourself?
Yes, sorry, Your Honor. I'm going to come back with it. Carrying cash is, I think it's pointless. Nobody takes cash anymore. So you have it in your pocket, it just stays there. So I choose 15 years ago not to take cash around anymore. Now, it might get you out of paying a bill once in a while, and that's just, hey, I don't have any cash. And I think it's a long-term strategy that's kind of worked really well for me.
It's worked well. It's worked well.
Do you know what this restaurant banter made me think of, Ray? Do you remember the day you were going to kill me in that restaurant in Los Angeles? Do you remember that?
Was this the gum and the coffee?
Ridiculous prank. So
gum and
we were sitting at this really nice restaurant. Where were we, Dregs? We were at like one of the
on the Strand
in LA.
Newport Beach.
Really nice place. And we were at a big dinner, which is generally where you tend to focus in on me the most, Ray, carve me out of the herd and just lay a beating on me. And you were just giving it to me that entire dinner. And finally I realized, I'm like, okay, I got no choice here. I got to fire back for myself. And right at the end of the dinners, Ray always loves to order the high quality coffees with the, little this and that, or whatever, the little drinks and stuff. And so he takes a big sip, and just as he finishes it off, there's a little piece of chewed gum right in the bottom of his cup.
How could
mad?
How could anyone defend or not defend my freaking outrage? Why didn't you just spit into the coffee?
Yeah, I know. You deserved it. I mean, you deserved it. I was up and gone, though. I was gone. I was like, as soon as I saw you, I'm like, okay, he's going to see it. I got up and left the table and walked down to the end of the table and around the corner and was peeking at you.
Do you remember we were on a patio and there was a railing, and it felt like he was going to throw you over the railing.
I thought I was going over the railing.
Even right now, I'm like, that's so freaking gross.
It was.
I don't even know how many.
I know.
That's. Look at you. I know. Yeah, I like.
It was really bad. It was really bad. Anyway, it made me think of that and the stress that I often felt at those team dinners with you guys, Dregs, when it was like there'd be 8 of us for dinner and you guys are ordering like the most expensive steaks and all these bottles of wine and stuff. And I'd order like a salad and an appy, and then you're all like, yeah, we'll just cut the bill 8 ways.
Okay, well, hang on here. Hang on. You back in the day, you weren't ordering a salad. Trust me.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Here we go. So a little bit of a year in review theme to some of the questions here today, guys. And we're just going to kind of do more rapid fire along these lines here. Taking a look back at some of the bigger stories from hockey in 2024. Let's start with the trades. People love the trade talk, and we're about to get into that in the upcoming months. But looking back at 2024, when you think of the biggest trades, the most impactful trades, what stands out to you guys as the biggest trades? And some of the candidates here, right? Obviously, that Sergachev trade was a big trade. Capitals get Logan Thompson. You got the Markstrom deal. Ullmark as well, Hanifin to Vegas with that contract, Dubois to Washington, Middlestat, Byram. Like there was a year of some pretty decent sort of mid-tier trades, I'd say.
Yeah, the goalies always interest me because they have the potential to have such great impact, right? And Jersey had been, playing musical chairs in goal for a couple of years, and Tom Fitzgerald was, was very open with his want of a goalie, and that deal took a little bit longer maybe than people had hoped in Jersey, and they feel like they're in a different place the second Markstrom steps in Jersey's net. As soon as he steps in there, they just look like a different team. I'd say the same thing in Ottawa with Ullmark. I felt in the summer that had the potential to be the biggest impact trade of the year, and when he's in the net, it's a different Ottawa team, right? Like these are game changers. Those would be the ones I think of. I mean, Vegas is man. They swing big on everything they do, and Noah Hannafin's that was a big one too. But the goalies for me stand out. Dregs?
Yeah, I would agree 100% with that. And look, Tom Fitzgerald took a fair amount of criticism too for not acquiring a goaltender long before that, right? I mean, they went everywhere last year. Injury was a big part of the struggles of the New Jersey Devils. But I remember somebody from New Jersey telling me that, as much as they love the idea of Connor Hellebuck from the Winnipeg Jets and making that trade, what scared them more was what they thought was going to be just an exorbitant contract that they just weren't going to be able to afford it, or it was going to come at the expense of other pieces. So they backed away from that. And then, as we know, Hellebuck got what was an affordable contract extension in Winnipeg. And maybe there was some remorse from Tom Fitzgerald for not closing in on that deal. But when the opportunity was there to grab Jacob Markstrom, he did it, found a way to get it done. And look what the Devils are doing now. And I mean, the goaltending is one of many factors in New Jersey, but in Ottawa, same thing. They had to stabilize that position. Yep. And if those guys can get back healthy again, with Linus Ullmark and Anton Forsberg, that's a pretty solid tandem.
A lot of coaches changed locations in 2024. I don't know if I don't know if most shocking is the right way to go, because often we see them coming in advance. Maybe most notable, but there were a lot of coaches changing locations. Ray, what would be either the most shocking or most notable of the changes in coaching?
Well, I'm going to say, like, as a general statement, the lifetime or the life of a lifespan
expectancy,
of a coach, is zero. It's like I think Marty St. Louis in the top 6 or 7 in tenure, and you're like, doesn't it feel like he just got hired yesterday? It's crazy. So like I look, like, when we go around and get to talk to coaches, and I see John Cooper there, I'm like, holy smoke, man, he's been there a decade. That's like, that just doesn't happen. I mean, Brindamore is the same. Same sort of span in Carolina, but I would say Jim Montgomery in Boston for me is he had 130 points. They looked like they were going to really come apart at the seams without Krejci and Bergeron, and they got 100 points again, and then they won a round, and and now he, to get fired and then hired in a span of a week or whatever, that whole scenario, that would be the biggest one for me.
Yeah, I guess for me, and this is more on a level of fairness. And what is fair, right? The owner has lofty expectations, so that pressure goes from ownership to management. Now management has to make, tough decisions, and there are only so many things you can do as a general manager. If you can't find that big trade, well, all right, maybe it's time to replace the coach. So look, I'm not judging Doug Armstrong in St. Louis. Drew Bannister didn't deserve to be fired by the St. Louis Blues. He was fired because Jim Montgomery was fired by the Boston Bruins, and a better coach became available. So that one would hurt the feelings, I would think, with the Bannister family, and maybe a little bit with Derek Lalonde. Even though we speculated so much on the possibility of that. I mean, Ray, you've done enough Detroit Red Wings games. That roster just isn't good enough. It's not good enough right now. So Lalonde would have found out going into the Christmas break that he wouldn't be back. But good coaches took over. So I understand it, but those two scenarios I found a little difficult.
One of the other big changes we saw was Utah born into the league in 2024. Ray, so far the experiment out there has been blank. What would you say?
Successful for sure, because we haven't talked about ownership once in 4 months. Thank goodness. We haven't talked about all the other nonsense that was going on in Arizona. I saw, or I read an article about what they had to do from the minute they got the team to just like to get to first base. And it was astounding they were able to pull it off. It really was. And now they're at the end of the year, they're going to chop off one end of the building and fix it. And you're like, aside from building a hockey operations department that now had a little more money, man, when they were in Arizona, like they didn't have any money to do anything. And now they do. And I mean, the way they treat the players, the way that they travel, the way that they were able to go make that Sergachev trade that you talked about. Like, what are the chances Arizona was going to make that trade? Nothing. No chance.
No chance.
They had to pay the salary. Like, they weren't going to do that. And so it successful for sure. Now, as soon as they get a name, I think that'll be the next step. And but it's been a success, I think. Not even I think it's an unqualified success so far.
You know why they don't have a name? Other than
the owner doesn't want to have one.
Well,
yeah, because
the fans want Yeti, right? They want Utah to be called the Utah Yeti, but because of trademark, infringement on the actual cooler company, and I just found that out
over there.
Yeah,
I've got a Yeti coffee mug. I get. Yeah,
there'll be a partnership or something there to be had, wouldn't you think?
So you would think, but man, it to go through that process it's extensive. But just a quick thought on Utah in general. I'm around Billy Armstrong, the general manager, enough. Like, those guys now, they're able to function as a supported and a resourceful hockey operations.
Right.
And his approach is way, way, way different. And you just need to spend 60 seconds around Ryan Smith, the owner in Utah, which we did, at the recent Board of Governors meetings. This guy is such a fresh breath of fresh air to the National Hockey League. It's not even funny. He just is, because, just the way he thinks, the ideas that are outside the box that aren't goofy, but he's open to everything and wants to do everything, not just for Utah, but for the NHL. It's a nice ad.
All right. At the end of every Ray and Drag, Zuby does a great job of picking out a moment from the show and pushing it out on Twitter as a promo. Always does a great job. I'm wondering if this next question might be that moment for us. The 2024 Stanley Cup Final, the Edmonton Oilers, the Florida Panthers, goes to Game 7. As we know, Florida wins it. It was a great series. If they were to start a 7-game series today, who wins our Stanley Cup Final today? The Oilers, as they exist right now, or the Panthers? Ray?
Florida. I think, although Florida just got shut out twice at home. I mean, like, that's
well, the Oilers just lost to the Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say Florida because they. Yeah, I just think they would forecheck in a way that Edmonton's defense would not be able to handle it. And yes, the people that are not there, but then you add in the way that Bouchard's played the front half of the season, and he played so much for them last year. Like, he was upwards of 25, 26 minutes a night. And so, Florida's got deletions, and Edmonton, I would pick Florida just by about the same margin, I think. 1 goal, not much.
See, and I'd pick Florida as well, but I don't think it'd go 7 games. You're right. I mean, there are subtractions on both sides. Stan Moman can put his mark on this team. The expectation is he will, to plug some of those holes. The reason I say less than 7 is just now Florida knows what it takes, how to win, and how to implement a game that wins. And I think Edmonton, even though they came within a whisker, is still wondering how to get that done.
Yeah. I'll sound like the big-time homer here, given I live and work in Edmonton and cover this team. But I can't help but think, guys, that the next time Connor McDavid gets to a Stanley Cup Final, he's not coming away with second place. I'm not sure I see that happening. But obviously, it's more than just about
funny.
him.
Ryan, you mentioned Connor, and the one thing that made me think of the Oilers here in this is Draisaitl. The way that he's played this front half of the season. And the way the final went for him, went really. I mean, they were both good, but they're at such another level. I was like, man, maybe a second time through, and the way that he's playing right now, that could be a
Mhm.
difference. But everybody, what do they say? You got to lose to win. And Florida lost the year before, and they won the next year.
Okay, two more, and we'll go a little quicker here. We had many memorable guests on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast in 2024. If you think back, gentlemen, to some of your favorite appearances or your favorite moments, what stands out for you? Now, I'm going to run down a bit of a list here, man. Sam Reinhart, Johnny Waddell, Keith Jones, Rasmus Dahlin, Dean Evison, Rick Bowness, Nick Foligno, Craig Berube, Josh Morrissey, Cole Caulfield, Mark Stone, Steven Stamkos, Sheldon Keefe, Billy Guerin, Craig Conroy, Dean Evison, Spencer Carberry, Stamkos, Dylan Gunther. I will cast my vote. One of the most interesting interviews I thought you guys did all year long. I thought Spencer Carberry was fantastic on this show with some of his thoughts and talking about coaching Alex Ovechkin. Many great guests, and we thank them all and some great moments, Dregs.
Yeah. I mean, top three for me in no particular order would be Spencer Carberry, another coach that we just had on recently, Sheldon Keefe with the New Jersey Devils. I just the freedom for him to be able to tell the story of how he, was wooed to New Jersey. I hadn't heard that in long form. And
it was awesome.
It was phenomenal. And as you said, I mean, Spencer was terrific. And Steven Stamkos walking us through his process and how much he wanted to stay, obviously, in Tampa Bay. So we didn't have the upheaval with his family, and just how difficult it was at that point. And it's still difficult in transition for Stamkos and the Nashville Predators. So those would be my top three.
Yeah, the Stamkos one was the one I thought of immediately, just because I didn't know the story right around the tail end of June and into July 1st. I really like that. I'm always entertained by, as most people are, by Billy Guerin. I love the story about not winning the trade and just making the trade. Like, I just thought that was a fascinating look into the way a manager would think. I really found that phenomenal. And I've always enjoyed this segment right here, mainly because, Ryan comes in, sometimes disheveled, today looking very sharp. You look very news anchory right now.
Heading straight to the rink, boys. Straight to the rink. I take my job seriously here.
Eh? You're just grinding, and I like it.
Yeah,
I like
not
it.
just chucking on some novelty hat and hopping on air here. Last one. Wow. We've looked at the hockey world. We have looked at the podcast. Now I'm going to ask you guys to look inward as the calendar flips over to a new year. Something that you would like to be better at in 2025. Ray, it'll be a pretty lengthy list, so I'm going to let Dregs go first while you filter through it.
Oof.
Better at 2025?
Yeah, a little self-improvement here, Dregs.
Oh, no,
Any
I got
mirrors
a lot
in your
of
house or no?
self-improvement. Nah, I got lots of work to get done, and that's exactly what it is. We always make these resolutions, right? Oh, I'm going to do this, and I have to do this differently, and all that. No. I have to do things differently. I've got to eat healthier. I've got to look after myself. I've got to start working out more. All of that. So this is the year.
Well, that's at our stage or our lap of the race here, Dregs, you got to get to, like, we all got to look at that, right? Like, and for me, I would say it's freaking ongoing quest. This would be, well, not when I was 3 or 4 or 5, but I'd say in the last 45 years of trying to be a little less frustrated, a little more patient, a little more zen. It's a freaking chore, man.
Wow.
Like, it is.
Tell you what, I look forward to that guy showing up in that chair next week or later this week.
Dregs, I told this story, Ryan Dregs, I told this story last night. So when I was 17 years old, I'm playing senior baseball with guys that are upwards of 30, right? So I'm 17. And at the end of the year, they had a gag gift thing, and we had a get together. And they gave me a doctor's kit. So I'm 17. And I'm like, I wonder what this is for. And the guy goes, this is so you can work on your patience. I was 17. Could you imagine? I said to them, I go, they must have thought, man, this little asshole just will not shut up. Like, he's Like,
Mm-hmm.
and when I look back at it, I'm like, oh, that was only 43 years ago. I've really come not far. I'm still working on it.
Yeah. Well, if you're open to
What about you?
suggestions, I was kind of fishing there for you guys, thinking maybe you would want to turn over a new leaf in 25 and be a little nicer to your little brother here on the show that comes on once a week. But I'm not going to hold my breath for that one.
No, I think, you know what I'm going to do? This is going to be the first thing I'm going to be patient with, Dregs, in 2025 is when we've got to beg for those invoices to be paid, I'm just going to be a little more patient.
Yeah, just gonna back off a little bit. I get it. Okay,
Yeah,
I
sounds
can
good.
do that. Yeah.
That sounds good. Guys, have a great new year. Thanks for letting me come on and have some fun with you guys. Have a great new year, and we'll chat later this week.
All right, buddy.
Yeah,
happy
happy-
holidays.
All the best in 25 to everybody. I hope you're healthy and have a really good year. And Ryan, thanks honestly for all you do for our stuff. And Dregs, this has always been fun, man. This has always been great. Thanks for listening, everybody. All the best.
All right. Well, we'll wrap this thing up. Thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make the podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, Tim Hortons, and as always, thank you to Acon. All right. Have a safe and happy New Year. We'll catch you in 2025.